Okay, so, for all my years where hearing this thing would represent having to return to class, I still didn't end up hating it as much as I hate it now. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You know what you've done. Hi all and welcome. Today we'll be exploring the second game in the Marvel Spider-Man series. It may be a bit late considering that the game actually came out in 2023, but that's a struggle a PC gamer has to go through if they don't own a PlayStation. What struggle? I had to live under a rock for the last couple of years in order to not get spoiled until the game came out on PC. Officially. I had to try avoiding spoilers like I was playing Toho, where unfortunately I did get hit in the form of being spoiled about the first boss of the game and the suit that makes sudden appearance in the game. Alas, the game is now here, so it's time to explore if it can stand up to the masterpiece that was the first game. Throughout the video, when we reach parts where I understand the easter eggs or references made, I will do my best to explain them, so stick around as this game seems to have been made by and for the fans. Looking at how many things I want to talk about, I assume the video will be quite long, so let's call it an in-depth analysis. As we will be going through the whole game, there will be spoilers past this point, so if you want to experience the game yourself, which I highly recommend, go play it yourself and come back watch this after. Alright, let's start. Let me give a brief recap of what happened in this universe with Spider-Man.
Previously on Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is already an established hero, but things are getting tough as Sinister Six is forming and creating havoc around the city. Hold on, as I'm writing this I'm thinking to myself, is it right for me to quickly skim through the original one just to get this started? I wanted to, but I think it would be a disservice both to the first game and this one. In order to understand if the second game is good, we need to talk a bit about the first game and what made it good. At the time of its release, the previous open world Spider-Man game was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that? Well, I think that one came out with mixed reviews. I'm sure nowadays it's seen better, but I remember back when it came out it felt so underwhelming that I didn't even try playing The Amazing Spider-Man and its sequel. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you why though. Maybe it was a traversal system that seemed so different, maybe it was the stiff animations, maybe it was because it was following the plot, I think, of the Amazing Spider-Man movie, which I was not a big fan of either. Regardless, when the first trailer for the Marvel game got released back in 2016, it blew up. The animations felt so smooth, the traversal system looked like it wanted to make you feel like Spider-Man, and the graphics were incredible. Then the game came out and boy, it was a hit. Honestly, it had everything you could want from a Spider-Man game and more. It took inspiration from so many different past games and upgraded them in so many different ways. It took the random street events from games such as Spider-Man 2 the movie the game, it took challenges from games such as Ultimate Spider-Man, it took the idea of having so many different costumes from games such as The Amazing Spider-Man, oh, and also the stealth mechanics from that game I guess. All that packaged well with a story that felt like it knew how to handle a Peter Parker story. It was definitely one of the most, if not the most mature Spider-Man story from a game that I personally have played. What do I mean? Well, the only huge pillar left from Peter's life, Aunt May, is on the deathbed. Peter has the cure in his hand, but using it means not allowing the cure to be developed for more people that need it. So what does he do? Does he jump back into action to go beat up some bad guys to bring some more of the cure? No, he's hopeless. All he can do is tell Aunt May that he does not know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
And Aunt May actually does die there, with Peter having to leave with the choices he made. Man, the voice actor did such a great job for this. Right, so now I think it's fair to go through a quick recap. If you already know this, skip ahead. Norman Osborn runs for mayor whilst Mr. Negative is pursuing him. Whilst we try to take him out, he murders other innocents on the street, one of which being a police officer that tried to help, Jefferson Davis. Now, Dr. Otto Octavius has his grants taken away by Osborn, who is trying to get him to join his team instead to help develop a cure. A cure for who? A cure for his son and Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn, who is dying from a disease and barely kept alive. Instead of getting Dr. Otto Octavius to join, what he manages to do is create Dr. Octopus, who is now forming Sinister Six, to take revenge. Spider-Man obviously defeats all of them and sends them back to prison, but not before Dr. Octopus manages to release the Devil's Breath, which killed many, with Aunt May included. The son of Jefferson Davis, Miles, gets bitten by a spider and reveals his powers to Pete, who also reveals that he is Spider-Man. The game ends with Harry being revealed to be in a liquid chamber with black goo around him. The next installment is focused on Miles Morales as he has to learn how to be a Spider-Man as well whilst Peter is away from the city. He reconnects with an old friend that is revealed to be the main villain, talks to his favorite uncle about his struggles who is also revealed to be a villain, and falls in love with a girl that is also no, I'm joking on this one. Unfortunately, as he's Spider-Man, he had to send his uncle to prison and tried to save his best friend's life, but in the end, he couldn't. The game ends with the reveal that Harry's condition became more stable, and as such, Norman wants him out. Great, with all that exposition, let's start. We get a flashback from 2 years before the current events where Harry is being put in the liquid chamber for his healing process to begin. It is revealed that Dr. Curtis Connors is lending a hand, to Norman with the Healing Harry project. How do I know it's him? A wild guess. Back to the present day, our favorite boy Miles is surprised to learn that Peter is his new physics teacher. Peter has always had a love for physics and wants to share that love with the students. The universe does not want that though, as right after the class starts, Marco, Flint Marco, also known as Sandman, decided to attack the city, so it's up to the Spider-Man to take care of it. As we swing to meet Mr. Sandman, I already noticed something very interesting about this game. So in the first game you obviously had New York to swing around in. For the Miles game, one thing that they did to make it feel different was they had the story happen in the winter. Say what you want about New York, but I believe it can look gorgeous during the winter, and I loved it. Right, so New York for Insomniac doesn't seem to be a static map. And straight from the get-go, for this it's not static either, as the closer you get to where Sandman is, the more different it is, with the city being damaged by the sandstorm and the people needing help due to the ruckus caused by it. And just like the previous game, this starts out with a bang. You are thrown in the middle of a crazy scene. You don't get to just swing around to learn the game mechanics. No, you learn them by being thrown into buildings and fighting mini Sandmans. After learning the different moves each Spider-Man has, you use a combined attack to turn Sandman into crystals. Now, throughout the Sandman's history as a character, he has been mostly written as a different type of villain, not a type that wants to cause harm, but the type that does it anyway when losing control. Obviously, with any other character that appeared in countless stories, this is not always the case, but for me that is what makes Sandman special as a villain. A tragic villain. So why does he do all of this time? Well, he sends us a warning that someone is after him and that they will be after the Spider-Man too. Who? Well, the one person who watched the movie Kravin will be very excited now because it's Kravin Time. Kravin the Hunter is bored as all his prey is too easy to capture, so his underling hunters show him that New York has plenty of good prey to hunt that will be harder and thus being more entertaining, so they show him B-Tech villains to hunt. Okay, not to hate on these villains, but my guy says he wants a challenge and then chooses to hunt the Vulture, Tombstone and the Lizard. I mean, that's cool, but don't act like you are not in the Marvel universe where characters such as Magneto and Doctor Doom exist. I digress, so Kraven is coming to New York. I'll talk about his character in a bit. Before that, we get possibly one of the best additions to the game in my opinion. So with this game they expanded New York and made it bigger, which is really cool, but the issue one might have is that going around it might take ages. In order to not make traversal so tedious, they added a new traversal mechanic that fits Spider-Man perfectly. They added surfing. Wait, no, not that one. They added gliding. This is accomplished by using webs around your armpits to glide across the city, and it's so fast, I kid you not, throughout my whole time in this game so far I have only fast traveled once. Fun fact, the first Spider-Man suit in the comics actually had a design that included these. So this is one aspect of the game that I feel has improved a lot. It's one of those things that once you have it, it's hard to not have it anymore. You go back to the previous game and it suddenly feels so much slower. Going back to the story though, Peter obviously gets fired for not only missing his first day as a teacher, but also appearing as if he was the first to run away in the case of an emergency. Now, this could have easily been written off as funny. In fact, it's a running thing for Spider-Man to not be able to keep a job due to having to save the city as Spider-Man. Instead, what they went for in this is the more serious route. Peter gets back home where he meets up with MJ and has to tell her the bad news. He got fired. In my opinion, MJ doesn't even ask what happened as she is probably aware that him needing to be Spider-Man interfered with him just being a professor. As things weren't bad enough, she may also be getting fired as a journalist as J. Jonah Jameson is her new boss and he seems to be going for the classic new manager approach of things need to change around here. As they go inside the house, Peter says something that caught my attention. He says, "I haven't had time to clean." And it got me thinking, huh, they don't live together? That's weird. And this scene right here is a big part why I love these games. The dialogue is way more down to earth and mature than I would have anticipated. They don't talk about random stuff just to fill some gameplay time. They have issues. Aunt May mortgaged the house to help the Fix community, which was a big part in the first game, a charity community basically, but now that she's gone, Peter is left to pick up the pieces. So MJ is asking if he may have considered selling the house, to which Peter says that theoretically he could, but he can't bring himself to do so. She asks if he needs help with some payments, but Peter says he can't let her do that. He then finally asks if she's thought more about moving in, and as much as she seems to like that idea, her working for Daily Bugle means she needs to be closer to the city for work, and I know I've been talking a little bit too much about this, but the dialogue here really impressed me. These are not superhero talks, these are real dialogues real couples would have in their situation. Spider-Man is meant to be a more relatable character, and as many of us grew up with him in high school or college, with him struggling with that environment, we were able to emphasize with those issues too. As we grow older though, some of these issues now seem to be more distant as we face new challenges, and so does this iteration of Spider-Man. As we continue, we get a flashback to young Peter, which was also unexpected. We get to see Aunt May tell something to Peter that resonates with him now more than ever, which is that sometimes you cannot do everything as you end up not being good at any of the things you are doing. Back to the current time, however, MJ is being told that a prisoner is being relocated to the raft, so she has to go. The raft is a big prison where most of the supervillains are kept secure enough to escape once in a while just to keep Spider-Man on the edge at all times. As she leaves though, Harry makes them a surprise visit as he is starting to feel better. Of course, they are technically not supposed to know that, as Norman only told them he went away in another country to study. Now, what better way to catch up with your old friend than to bike around the suburbs? Another unexpected thing. This scene is great. I don't know why, but I absolutely loved just biking around as Peter through the peaceful neighborhood. It honestly made me want to have the option to do this around the whole New York, not just bound to this story mission. From what I could see though, you technically can in the form of bike challenges around the city. Now, to what end does Harry want to bike around with Peter? Well, to discuss the past when they were talking about how they want to create a foundation to heal the world. You know what else Harry wanted to do? To rickroll apparently. Not everything is great though, as the end of the flashback revealed that that same day Harry found out that his mother passed away from a disease. So what is the purpose of all this reminiscing? Well, Harry wanted to invite Peter to be the co-founder of their company in hopes that together they can make the world a better place. Now, at this point I was still not sure where the story wants to go. So it was clear that the game will have Venom, and it was also quite obvious that in this universe Harry will become Venom. But a part of me was hoping that would not be the case. I went wild with the theories, thinking even that Kravin might be the Venom of this universe. How did it go? We'll see. Before we see though, we have to keep an eye on the raft transfer where Scorpion needs to be transferred. Now, let me simulate the thought process of the people in charge of this transfer.
Officer, we need this highly dangerous individual calling himself the Scorpion to be transferred.
Yes, sir. But can I ask, why does he still have his costume on?
Don't be silly, he needs to look cool whilst the transfer is happening.
Okay, sir, but can we at least take off his highly venomous sharp tail?
No, but seriously, why would the transfer happen whilst he's dressed like that? You could argue that the costume is keeping him alive, but at least remove the tail, you know, the most dangerous part. But what is happening? Scorpion is not the only one being transferred. Martin Lee is also being transferred. As we discussed earlier, Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, killed Miles' father, which puts Miles on the edge. Anyway, things happen, Miles is tempted to kill him but doesn't do it. Not only that, but Kraven arrives and tries to take Martin away. Don't worry though, as Miles is there to stop him. But at what cost? There are people behind him that need him right there and then. Our boy has to make a tough choice here and decides to let go of Martin to save the people. Where do we go from here? We go back to Harry, of course, as he wants to take Peter out for a walk around the building of their new corporation. And in this scene, I realized something. I love Harry's character in this universe. He is such a great friend to Peter and a great guy overall. I will say something controversial, but at the time of playing this, I was feeling like this Harry might actually be one of my favorite iterations of Harry Osborn. Why am I saying that? Well, thinking back at the previous iterations, most of the times Harry is still Peter's best friend and is indeed supportive, but he either has this rich boy attitude about him or just something that makes him less likable. Sometimes he would just like Mary Jane, even dating her. Or take this one for example, in Spider-Man, the new animated series, the show which thought, why don't we have Spider-Man voiced by Neil Patrick Harris?
So, what does a fella have to do to get laid around here?
By the way, that worked out great. But yeah, in this series, Harry is a good friend to Peter, but he really dislikes Spider-Man. In fact, that is something that's quite common with Harry's character. In this game, however, that is not the case. Harry is a down-to-earth, humble guy that just wants to use his father's money to actually help people. For now. See, for this one I actually really did not want Harry to become Harry. Things were working out too well. Not just with Harry, the writers created such a paradise for Peter at this point, making it feel like finally Peter is having some luck in his life. His best friend reappears, he is offered to be the co-CEO of a company, and not only that, but the work he will do here is what he dreamt of since he was a teenager. To help heal the world. We all know this is not to last, as otherwise we wouldn't have a Spider-Man game. It has to come crashing down, but it really makes you think Peter does deserve some peace, doesn't he? Putting Peter in this situation also poses a philosophical question in my opinion. Peter is clearly smart, and with his business he wants to help the world. There is no doubt that in this position he would succeed at. When he is Spider-Man, he is also saving people, but rather than focusing on a general population, he focuses on the individual. So in both ways he might end up saving people, but in different ways. And who is to say which one is better? Sure, being a researcher might not be flashy, but what if he ends up saving more people as a consequence? That's why he became Spider-Man, right? To save people. And with the saying, with great power comes great responsibility, who is to say that it has to be physical power? Moving on though, we infiltrate one of Kraven's bases and discover that Kraven's goal is to capture the villains and have them fight him to death, as we see a video of him just completely annihilating Scorpion. And thinking about it, this is amazing. So one issue comic books have with writing heroes or villains is that it's hard to kill them off, or at least kill them permanently. If they are popular enough, they will find a way to bring them back. The only time a character truly dies in a comic is when they are forgotten. However, as this story happens in its own universe, they don't need to worry about this. Scorpion had his story explored more in the first game, and so killing him off doesn't really hurt the continuity because they don't need him back. And that's great because you get moments like these where you go, oh my god, he's actually dead. Well, that's important because he has more villains on his list. One of which being Felicia Hardy, also known as the Black Cat, also known as one of Peter's ex-girlfriends. It is not too late for her though, as she wasn't caught yet. Let's go save her, Pete. Oh, things are awkward between you two, aren't they? Ah, I see, you're sending Miles instead. Let's go save her, Miles. Oh, she doesn't want to be saved, she runs away. Okay then, let's take this time to talk about another aspect that was inspired by other Spider-Man games, namely the chase scenes. So I think chase scenes in Spider-Man games are like anime fights and edgy music. Obviously you have this massive city you can roam around in, and this inventive traversal mechanic, you will want to chase something. This tale is as old as Spider-Man games were 3D. I mean, look at this amazing chase scene in here. The ones I remember the most are the ones in a game I will bring back a bit more in this video, as I think there's a lot of inspiration from it. Ultimate Spider-Man. Man, that title screen song is so good. I remember the chase scenes in this game were so frustrating but so good. You chase Rhino, you chase Johnny Storm, you even chase the Beetle. As nice as they were back then and I have great memories with them, Marvel Spiderman has that but on steroids. Especially in this second game. Like sure, the first game had some flashy chase scenes, but look at this. We are swinging in the Arctic, how cool is that? Right, so we are chasing down the Black Cat. Why are we chasing down the Black Cat? We are chasing the Black Cat to warn her about being pursued while we pursue her. She is running away though, as she stole a scepter that allows her to teleport to great distances. What evil master plan might she have with such a powerful artifact? Oh, she wants to go to Paris to help her partner. Has she heard of planes, I wonder? yeah, no, she opens a portal to Paris and you just know we will not be joining her there. I mean, look how low textures the buildings are in there. Off she goes and leaves the artifact to us. One thing I didn't mention is that the artifact was stolen from Doctor Strange's house, so as Miles tried to use it in order to find out where Mr. Negative is kept, the artifact is, I guess, teleported back, and instead he gets a note from the one and only Sorcerer Supreme, Wong. I'm joking, of course. To my knowledge, in the comics he has never been a Sorcerer Supreme. It's just a Marvel movie thing. Now that we got the Black Cat to safety, how about we take some detours a bit? How? Well, by talking about the different activities you can do as Spider-Man in New York City. And you bet I'm bringing the Ultimate Spider-Man back for this. Just like chase-ins, having events in Spider-Man games became the standard with any open-world Spider-Man game. The ones I remember the most again are in Ultimate Spider-Man. One thing I believe might be brought from that game was saving random civilians and having to swing with them to a hospital, giving them nausea in the process. After so many flips, they'll need a hospital, right?
We're almost there.
Also, this is in America, so I bet some of them would object more if the ambulance came to pick them up rather than Spider-Man. However, that is not my favorite activity from the Ultimate Spider-Man game. Allow me to derail this a bit to talk about that game as I keep bringing it up. What is Ultimate Spider-Man? Well, Ultimate Spider-Man is a game based on a very popular comic book that tried to reimagine the life of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. This allowed the creators to reimagine villain origin story, hero's origin story, and different classic arcs from Spider-Man in a new form, where Spider-Man is just a teenager trying to learn and screwing things up. The Ultimate Spider-Man game is basically that comic book but in game form, and it looks perfect. The cel-shaded graphics really stand out the test of time. So in that game, one of my favorite things to collect were the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book covers. I still remember that around that time was when the comic book was also releasing weekly where I was from, so finding these covers in the game and then having the physical copies just blew my mind. Especially because they stopped printing it after chapter 11. I will never forgive them for that. Like, come on, Spider-Man was just about to fight Electro. I guess I'll just have to fight him in the game. But yeah, so I think having collectibles in a Spider-Man game is such a great addition. So what does this one have? You have a few combat ones like fighting mini Sandmans to collect pieces of his broken mind or fighting a cold. You have weird ones like Mysterium where I had to play Guitar Hero for a bit apparently just to randomly fight Markiplier after. Oh, I'm now throwing the button prompts at enemies. However, it's not just the fighting ones. You also have photos to take of popular places, activities that happen around New York, you have mini spider robots to collect that are each dressed up as different Marvel characters, and probably my favorite, the FNSM requests. They are great. Take this one for example. You as Spider-Man go to meet up with a fan that is trying to become a photographer. She's telling Spider-Man how the photographer who she looks up to the most is this guy, Peter Parker, who took amazing pictures of Spider-Man and proceeds to show him the most famous picture of Spider-Man taken by Peter Parker. This is also the first cover for the first standalone Spider-Man comic as far as I know, which is awesome. So then Spider-Man goes down the memory lane at the day he had to hand in the picture to JJJ, and you get to bike around New York as young Peter and see the interactions with the characters, and I think that is just amazing. Also, this guy is clearly not well, he has bars going through him. Like, sure, the collectibles aren't as cool as the comic book covers from Ultimate Spider-Man, but I feel like showing these scenes have their charm as well. But wait, there's more, it's not just the missions that have these moments. The next story mission takes us to a carnival with Peter, MJ and Harry, where you can try different activities in the carnival. And this is where another serious talk scene happens as MJ and Pete are discussing how nice it feels to just have normal nights like this, and okay, maybe it doesn't look too serious when I make them raise their hands and cheer while they're saying that, so let's change the scenes. Much better. Again, this is an important part of the story for Peter, that he's been doing Spider-Man for so long that he neglected other aspects of his life. And sometimes he just wants to be Peter, just like tonight, where he gets to enjoy some nice time and the carnival is being attacked. Why? Well, Tombstone, who is a villain from a DLC from the first game, is being targeted by Kravin for his next hunt. Again, Kravin, really? Tombstone? What are you gonna go for next? Paste Pot Pete? So yeah, as we battle through the unlimited amount of people Kravin hired to fight us, we get into a tough situation which Spider-Man can't really deal with alone. Miles is not here though, so the person that has to step in is Harry, and step in he does. One thing that I love about this scene is that obviously Peter is surprised that Harry can do this, but him being caught off guard I believe might be the reason that Harry found out Spider-Man is Peter Parker, his best friend. My headcanon is that he was so surprised that he forgot to adapt his voice to a more non-Peter, so Harry instantly recognized him. So after they save the day, they discuss about each other's realizations and how to move forward. At this point, both of them think the suit is great and it can be a big help for Pete, but Harry doesn't know how to control it yet. But don't worry about that, as they can learn how to control it by going to the lab and analyzing thoroughly and scientifically. Or nah, how about just ruining the place? Well, after they are done doing that, Norman informs Harry that Dr. Connors is missing. Harry doesn't seem too bothered by it, but you and I know what that means, right? Kravin is on the hunt again, that cheeky bug. Anyway, I think now it would be a good time to talk about one of my favorite things in Spider-Man games. The different suits you can unlock. In the second game, they work a bit different than in the first game, as in the first game the suits would also come with different powers or ultimate abilities, such as the punk suit giving you a blast AoE damage zone, or the armor suit would give you an ability to become temporarily bulletproof. In this one though, the suits are just aesthetic, which I don't mind too much considering the amount of skills you have to use in the game anyway. I kind of get lost in them sometimes, to be honest. Also, even in the first game, the powers that the suits gave you were just a temporary ability, like, come on Insomniac, why are you so afraid of giving us Captain Universe Spider-Man with permanent invulnerability? In saying that, I don't mind them not having different powers. The most important part is that there are diverse options for suits, and considering that there are now 2 Spider-Man you have to make suits for, that might be a bigger challenge. So how are the suits variety in this game? I love them. I will not be talking about all of them in here because this video is already turning out to be quite long, and talking about all of these suits would probably take another whole video, but I do want to mention a few of my favorites. I will leave my favorite one for later as that one might be a spoiler for now, but let's see. You obviously have the movie suits and the animated movie suits that have a lower frame rate look to them. But those are not amongst my favorites, I think. One of the most unexpected ones for me was the Hellfire Gala suits. This looks insanely good in my opinion. The fact that the spider is on the shoulder is so unique. This one seems to come from an X-Men comic from 2022 which I haven't read, so I can't give much more detail than that. We also have the suits that have capes like the Shadow Spider suit. If you think adding a hood to a spider suit makes it look cool, look how much cooler it is with a cape on. And then we have the one that I did not expect to be here but I was so hyped, the Superior Spider-Man suit. So for those of you that are not aware of that storyline, in one of the Spider-Man comic book stories, Dr. Octopus is on his deathbed and he just thinks, you know what, I'll just swap minds with Spider-Man, so he swaps minds and Spider-Man just dies. And from there on he wants to prove himself that he could be a better Spider-Man, so he calls himself the Superior Spider-Man and creates a superior suit. This suit is one of my favorite alternate Spider-Man suits, but it gets better. This game also has chromas for each suit, with each costing just $10 and... Wait, no, I'm joking, they are free, yay, thanks Insomniac, I can't believe I have to be thankful for that nowadays. I especially love the selection for chromas for Superior Spider-Man. Why? Well, after Peter gets back into his body, of course Dr. Octopus has to come back as well using a backup of his brain which he inserts in a body of a hybrid clone of Peter and Otto Octavius. He then creates another suit which he calls Superior Octopus and is part of the Hydra. I firmly believe this green alternative suit is that. Allow me one last one please. Another alternative chroma for Superior Spider-Man is the blue suit, and I firmly believe this is from the 2024 run of the Ultimate Spider-Man, which is an Ultimate Spider-Man sequel that sees Peter Parker without powers and in a happy family, and you know what, this one will take ages to explain, how about I just show you instead? Let's move on. We find out where Tombstone is kept and go there to try to save him. Oh, but we are not alone as Harry is making his appearance as... Okay, actually not just yet. But this is better in a way. So, a bit of history for Spider-Man lore, specifically Venom. In his first appearance, after being rejected by Spider-Man, the Venom symbiote fought another host in the form of Eddie Brock, a journalist with a grudge on Peter Parker. Later on, he would find another host in the form of Peter high school bully, Flash Thompson, and with him, he kind of became a hero throughout the story. It's a long story, but Flash became known as Agent Venom, which was Venom but with guns, and I want you to look at that costume and tell me that it's not the same. They are the same picture. Now, this was an interesting twist, as in the comics the first host was Peter Parker. I am not going to confuse you further by talking about the actual host being an alien apparently. And the Venom symbiote had a grudge on Spider-Man for leaving them. However, in this one the symbiote started on Harry and he probably gets to be a hero by using it, so it made me wonder why would it leave Harry? So we beat our way through the enemies using combo finishers and eventually saved Tombstone in order to prove that villains can be reformed. all the while leaving everyone else we knocked unconscious behind in a factory that just exploded. I think it's really nice seeing how happy Peter is being able to work as Spider-Man alongside with his best friend. That is all so fantastic, I love it. Everything is so fast-paced and the combat is great. What do we have next? Oh. You see, in the first Spider-Man you had these missions where you played as MJ and you just had to tase enemies. I was really hoping they would get rid of those missions, as those were my least favorite part of the previous game. Like, I want to see the meeting where they went, you know what players really loved? MJ missions. Let's add some more of those. And everyone went, what a fantastic idea, I love it. In the first game you could argue they wanted to extend the story a bit and they added these missions, but as we will see in a bit, that is not only not needed in this game but actually kind of detrimental. I mean, even the developers knew these missions felt a bit tedious, as they did add a few things that would make MJ a bit more versatile towards the end. But yeah, so what is happening here is that MJ somehow ends up needing to save Dr. Connors while Spider-Man is arriving. In this section we can see, I'm not even sure if we should call them hints, but we see that Vulture got killed, we obviously saw that Scorpion got killed, and Schultz Herman, which is a shocker, pun intended. A small thing that I found interesting, and chances are that no one else will find it interesting, but I'll talk about it regardless, is that the people working for Kravin here are from Symkaria. Now, Symkaria is a fictional country in the Marvel Universe located right here. Something I personally didn't know before but found out here is that the language they seem to speak is Hungarian, as the radio guy says something vagyok, which in Hungarian means, well, you can read the subtitles. It means am or to be, and I promise I will not be starting a grammar session to explain further. I just found it interesting that the writers added the actual language of Hungarians and not just have them speak English for no reason. Great, I got distracted and look what happened. Kraven injected Dr. Connors with the lizard serum, which means he will transform back into the lizard soon. It's okay though, as MJ will take Connors to safety while Spider-Man and Harry will fight through the infinite number of enemies again. Man, those guys are really tough, they're beating me so hard I'm seeing double. Wait, hold on, that's not just me. Harry, what in the world happened here? Do symbiotes reproduce via mitosis? This is amazing, and it doesn't seem to be just visually, they actually are helping. Let's go get them, Harrys. I was kind of expecting this to be a first boss fight against Kraven, but nope, Kraven just shanks Peter. Now, this scene where Peter is fighting for his life is quite emotional in my opinion. I can imagine some people might say there are no stakes, as we obviously know Peter is going to survive, so what is the point, and I understand that. But here's my thought on this. If this was in a comic book, I would agree. However, in a form of narrative that also includes sound, this scene can still be impactful and carried by the voice actors. Sure, I know Peter is not gonna die, you know Peter is not gonna die, heck, even the Living Tribunal might know, but MJ and Harry don't, and the voice actors make that believable. And this is how Peter gets the symbiote suit. It is on. This symbiote suit feels so powerful, it's reminding me of God of War, I love it. I don't want Peter to take it off, it's so strong. Strange, is the symbiote affecting me as well? Time to get out of here and give it back to Harry, as the suit is keeping him alive. Go Venom suit! Oh no, the writers, pardon me, the suit doesn't want to go back to Harry yet? In that case, it's time to hunt the Hunter in order to get the serum needed to cure Dr. Connors again. And after going through some side missions where we infiltrate the place as Peter, we find out where to find Kraven. Now honestly, I personally don't see much point in talking about this part. The only interesting bit is that Kraven seems to be battling with cancer and doesn't have much time left to live, and as such, he wants to be taken out doing what he loves, hunting. Also, it's the first time we see the symbiote suit acting on its own. Now, we get to this church where we start battling Kraven, and by we, I mean not we, as it's just a cutscene, so I guess we just watch as Kraven discovers one of symbiote's weaknesses, sonic waves. As such, we grab the serum and leave to tell the tale. What do we do with that cure though? Spider-Man needs to have a very specific way of developing a cure using this with very specific high-tech tools. Where could we even find that? So yeah, we go back to the new foundation Harry created in order to create a cure and manage to completely ruin the place whilst doing it. All the employees will be working from home tomorrow, I imagine. Right, we got the serum, time to get the lizard, and what better place to find the lizard than at his home? Well, he apparently is not at his home. However, seeing how much pain Craven caused to Dr. Connors purely for him to fulfill his hunt satisfaction absolutely enrages Peter. And the more we go through these scenes, the more we see Peter giving into that symbiote rage. So at this point I feel like we've gone through a lot of the game, and you might have noticed how since the Sandman I have not talked a lot about other bosses, and you are correct. This game has a weird pacing when it comes to bosses. After Sandman you don't really get any other bosses for a long time in the story. You are introduced to different types of brute enemies with a larger health, but that's not what I'd call bosses. The reason why this is weird is that they do exist. As I was playing at the time, it didn't feel like it for me. Honestly, as I went through so much of the game, I was thinking, does this game only have like 3 bosses or something? So that is not technically the case. The main story does have more bosses, but they all seem to be packed towards the last 30 to 40% of the game, or at least that's how it felt like to me. So after we have gone through one of those crazy chase scenes that Marvel Spiderman is by now known for, we have our first boss fight in a while. I forgot to mention that Harry is dying without his suit and wants it back. But don't worry, as Peter also forgot. Now, I know you are all patiently waiting for that sick lizard boss fight, but I need you to hold on as Peter is exploring the lab where Harry was kept and found something very, very interesting. Down in this lab, Peter finds a rock. That's all, let's move on. No, wait, so in order to explain why this rock is important, I need to explain the history of the symbiotes. Well, at least the new history. So for the most part in the Marvel universe, not much was known about symbiotes. When the Venom symbiote was first introduced, all that was basically known was that it was an alien. Later on it was revealed that the symbiote is not alone, as there's a whole race of them called Clintars, and they come from a paradise planet. Now, this was all explored in more detail in 2019 with the Absolute Carnage event. In here we learn a few things, which I won't go too much in detail about as it would take too long as well. But essentially, a god that existed before existence itself called Knull, I believe he might also have been referenced in Venom 3, but I have not watched that movie and I'm not sure I want to, was angered by creation, as he basically saw light as being against his domain. As such, he waged war against light itself, but he needed an army, so he created the symbiotes. Fun fact, the reason symbiotes have fire and sonic waves as weaknesses is also explained in here, as when Knull was creating the sword that was to become symbiotes, the sword ended up fearing the sound of the hammer being used on the anvil and the fire of the forge. Also fun fact, it is revealed that the word Clintar means prison in the symbiote language, as the symbiotes imprisoned Knull as an act of rebellion. Now, the last important relevant thing about it is that this swirly symbol here is basically the symbol of Knull that all the lesser symbiotes seem to wear. As the storyline is quite new from 2019, I believe this is the first game introduction of Knull, and I find that awesome. Remember all this as it will be on the test. Moving on. We actually fight the lizard now, so get ready for this amazing fight. Or not, cause you can complete this fight by attacking a few times and dodging. That works too, I guess. The lizard escapes, so we have to chase him down New York, and this chase scene really does remind me of the Ultimate Spider-Man chase scenes. But yeah, after the chase scene we get another fight with an empowered lizard, and this time it's actually trickier, but eventually the lizard is defeated and Connor is restored. Time for some backstory. In this universe it seems that the people who have found the symbiote first was Osborn and Connors. As the genius he is, Connors approached the unknown lifeform which lashed onto his arm. Instead of getting a Venom Connors though, he asked for his arm to be removed, which is a very interesting backstory of Connors losing one of his arms. Again, as the genius he is, Connors chooses the wrong words to explain everything to Spider-Man, as he said it chose him. Hearing this, Peter gets excited, so excited that his suit evolves again. Found myself using these words a lot when writing the notes for this game, but this is quite amazing. We can see that as Peter becomes more and more unlike Peter, so does the suit, with it now looking more akin to Venom. And it's not just in the cutscenes either, as from this point the in-game model looks different. Now, after the symbiote tucks Peter in his bed, by the way, that's sweet, the suit obviously can keep Peter warm, so he didn't need to do that, but he did it anyway. It's time for another MJ mission around the neighborhood where a lot of interesting things happen. I'm joking of course, so I'll skip this part. Bottom line is, Peter is sleeping, the symbiote took control over his body and is now running around. MJ and Miles follow him and Miles gets captured by Kravin while trying to save people. Meanwhile, after running to Peter, we now have to run away from him. We escape, but Peter almost hurts MJ without even realizing. Peter then wakes up and doesn't remember what happened. An interesting thing is happening now though, as Harry is feeling worse and worse. Peter doesn't need the suit anymore and Harry realizes that. Whilst Harry was in the suit, the moment Peter needed it, without even hesitating, Harry transferred it. Now that Harry's the one needing it, he feels that Peter just delays it for absolutely no reason, and if you ask me, justifiably so. This, in my opinion, creates a scenario where one can actually understand how Harry feels and how he might end up becoming Venom once he gets the suit back. Now, at this point I was still hoping it wasn't going to be Harry that becomes Venom. My hopes were still for Kravin, but I mean, come on, look at Harry. He looks like he wants to join the glorious Hex-Deck Chest revolution. Now, I've been talking a lot about Peter Parker, but how about our boy Miles? Well, before I talk about him, I want to bring this to attention for those of you that are not aware. Remember the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book I was telling you about before? Well, in that universe, the writers really wanted to make Peter suffer. Peter did not have a moment of rest in it. Well, he did, once he died. Great, thanks writers. But there was one thing that was great that came out of that, which was actually Miles. Yeah, he was first introduced in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics and later on when the Ultimate Universe got destroyed, but before it was reborn, he got sent to the main 616 universe through some multiverse shenanigans. Now, in the comics, I believe having Miles alongside Peter allows Peter to grow up as a character. Younger generations can see themselves in the younger Spider-Man, whilst older generations can see themselves in Peter, as he's allowed to grow up. And I think that is fantastic. And that is supposed to be the case in this game as well. And to an extent, it is. However, this is before Peter gets the symbiote, as after he does, Miles is left to have no tutor in the moments he needed it the most, during the Mr. Negative comeback. If Peter would have been there, he could have helped Miles realize that whilst his anger is valid, he needs to let it go as it might lead to a dangerous path. Now, I believe Peter not being there is actually not detrimental because it allowed Miles to come to this conclusion on his own terms, which made it feel more impactful. How did he do that? Well, Miles woke up in a Kravin base where he tried to escape only to be led to an arena where he was put to fight against Mr. Negative. Only one survivor to escape this arena. This is a great setting as, unlike his previous interactions with Mr. Negative, this one would give him an excuse to act on his rage in the defense of "I had to do it in order to survive." However, after battling Mr. Negative and he summons Susano, Mr. Negative sends Miles away to a negative space, where he also has to fight his own insecurities. And honestly, I feel like these insecurities are as valid as they get. For one, he feels like he keeps asking his best friend Genki for stuff but never able to return his favors, so their friendship might feel one-sided. Secondly, whilst he wants to be a hero, he doesn't like that his mother might be constantly concerned about his safety. Thirdly, he feels insecure about not being good enough for Peter as Spider-Man, and finally, not being good enough to make his dad proud. Unluckily for Mr. Negative, Miles successfully fought over his inner doomer and even gained some new powers. Negative powers. Using those, he escapes this dimension, and when he gets close to deliver the final blow, he instead whispers Mr. Negative to find Spider-Man and tell him about this, and then he throws him out of the arena. This is believable character development in my opinion. So Mr. Negative does just that, finds Spider-Man, tells him about the situation, which enrages Peter as he goes to fight Kravin. And I'll be honest, based on this first part of the boss, I honestly thought it was gonna be easy, but then the second stage comes. And oh god, I hated it in passion. So on this battlefield there is a bell towards the end of the map which Kravin can throw a spear at in order to make it constantly ring unless you web it up. That is fine. However, Kravin, the sneaky guy he is, kept going the complete opposite side of the map, so me wanting to deal damage to him, I kept following. The issue? Well, if you are far enough from that bell or in a weird spot, you are basically dead as you only have 1 second to do anything, at which point the bell rings and you are pushed away from it. So you have to jump back in front to get in a position where you can web up the bell, but guess what? Your jump made you waste your time, so back you go. To make things even worse, Kravin is also attacking you whilst all this is happening, and all this made me hate the bell with passion. I just wanted to zip it and throw it away and... Wait, am I feeling what the symbiote might be feeling? That is genius actually. No other game made me feel the pure hate a symbiote might feel for the weakness it has. I'm not sure this was intended, but looking back at it, I don't hate it anymore. I love hate it. And you know what the worst part is? I forgot to press the record button for the session where I beat him, so I had to do it again. I actually didn't know where to put this part, so I guess this will work out. This game has some nice features once you finish the main story. You can start a new game plus where you start the story again, but maintain the level and everything you earned, and most importantly for this case, you can replay missions. So we go back to the fight and defeat Kravin. Amazing. As Peter still has some humanity in him, he does not want to murder Kravin. However, Kravin wants Spider-Man to murder Kravin, so he's forcing his head. No worries though, as Miles comes in just in time to stop him. This however gets Peter angry, so now we have to defeat him as Miles. After a few more attempts and by using the same bell that annoyed me, it is done. With Miles' help, Peter gets rid of the suit and puts it in a safe container. And in this moment here, I think I'm having an issue with Peter's choice. So I understand that he went through a lot with his suit and now that it's off, he doesn't want Harry to go through the same thing. But for all he knows, there is no other way to save Harry. You can literally just put him in a safe room and give him the suit just to keep him alive whilst you are looking for an actual working cure. But no, Peter decides that he will not give the suit to Harry. And honestly, if I'd be Harry, I'd be pissed too. Harry risked his life to save Peter, and in return, Peter doesn't want to risk it to save Harry. Not sure how I feel about this. What do you guys think? Right, so Peter wants to take the suit to Oscorp to have Dr. Connors destroy it. Instead, he finds Harry there, and one way or another, the symbiote is out and now bonded with Harry. Here comes the... And he's pissed. And you get to play with him, let's go. I have been hoping for this since it was confirmed that Venom will be in the game. Why? Well, here's the thing I've been holding off from talking about regarding the Ultimate Spider-Man game. One of my and probably a lot of people's favorite parts is that not only you get to play as Spider-Man, you also get to play as Venom for half of the game. You get a story from both perspectives, Spider-Man and Venom. And when you play as Venom, he is a beast. You get to roam around New York as him, you get to throw cars, you get to throw yourself at enemies, you even get to restore your health by eating enemies. Or civilians, because why not, you are Venom. So how about this game? Well, playing as Venom was really cool, with Venom feeling very overpowered and having different skills than Spider-Man. You even get to have another boss fight with Kravin again. The only issue I have is I would have honestly wanted more time as Venom. I wanted to roam around New York as him. I also wanted to do some activities as him, but no, it's only limited to specific story missions, which I guess is fine. The Venom part is also just at the end of the story, and whilst I do understand that they needed a setup, I really wish that either the game was longer or that it would be split in 2 games. Alas, we fight Kraven and Venom goes Pac-Man with his head, which probably makes Kraven's last moments to be the happiest. Right, so after doing that, the symbiote promises Harry that he knows how to heal the world, and it looks like it's by turning everyone into symbiotes. Okay, here's another inspiration for this game, Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Now, I don't want to get distracted too much again, but that game was basically Prototype but Spider-Man, where you choose whether to play as Spider-Man or Symbiote Spider-Man. Not only that, but you get to fight a lot of bosses as heroes / villains turned into symbiotes, and you even get to make choices that would reflect either normal Peter or symbiote Peter. One of the best parts was that as you progress through the story, you saw the city descend more and more into madness as Venom was spreading his symbiote tendrils to the point where it ended up in ruins. But that game had a whole game to develop this aspect. In this game it all happens so fast. You find out Venom creates symbiotes, you see the city starting to have those tendrils around, you save Miles' mother and Genki, you see more symbiote nests and one more boss fight, and then the city appears to be overwhelmed by the tendrils. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So you as Peter have a call with MJ and see that Harry is there, so basically he has MJ as hostage. This scene was quite interesting if I'm honest, and a nice twist as Mary Jane is turned into a symbiote herself, and the symbiote is actually one of the 5 children of Venom, Scream. It was also interesting how whilst fighting Scream, Mary Jane was telling Peter her own insecurities or dark thoughts. These are things that she either might have hinted at during the game or things that could be inferred. One insecurity she seems to be dealing with is how she's not good enough at her role and how no one actually read her book she put effort into it. When it comes to dark thoughts, she's telling Peter that she always had to put her life second place because obviously Peter's problems were more important because he was saving lives. This to me makes sense, and even though she might not actually feel that way strongly, it is still things she might have thought about at one point, otherwise she wouldn't say it now. Also, I'm hoping you see what I mean now with all the bosses being concentrated in the last part. So yeah, we turn MJ back to normal, which gives her an adrenaline rush enough to quit her job and pursue something she wants. Now that that is over, it's finally time to chase down Venom. We fail to do that and Spider-Man gets overcome by a lot of symbiotes. At this point, Mr. Negative comes to the rescue. I honestly should have seen this coming a while ago, considering in the comics Mr. Negative tried to cure this Brock's cancer and created the anti-Venom suit, but yeah, and here he gives up all his powers, which creates the anti-Venom suit for Spider-Man. And I absolutely loved it. But this is not the favorite suit of the game I was referring to, ages ago. My favorite suit is earned by completing all the symbiote nests and is the King Black Miles suit. Remember the symbiote god I was referring to earlier? What do you think would happen if Miles got knollified? Well, this. I was not expecting this suit at all, and the moment I saw it, it instantly became my favorite. Let us continue though, because we have to finish the story. Our band of heroes now realizes that they need to destroy the meteorite in order to stop the symbiotes from spreading, so while Spider-Man keeps Venom distracted and Miles keeps the symbiotes distracted, we get our final hero to infiltrate the place and steal the meteorite. Who? Well, MJ of course. And this? I honestly don't know what to think about this part. In my view, there is absolutely zero chance I could see Peter being okay with sending MJ to such a dangerous location. But apparently he is. He just upgrades her pew pew gun and sends her on her way. This to me makes no sense. Especially that she uses the gun to fight this absolute symbiote brute. Come on Peter, could you really not call on Daredevil or someone to help? Alas, she does get the job done, and quite well actually. So what is Peter up to in the meantime? Well, he is having his final battle with Harry. I don't think I have much to say about this fight, it's quite alright. I guess as we get close to the end, it's my final chance to reference Ultimate Spider-Man, so here we go. This battle happens on a football field, and it looks very similar to the first battle against Venom in Ultimate Spider-Man. I only wish I could have Peter fight him without his suit in here. So we anger Venom as he realizes we stole the meteorite, and as a consequence he grows wings. What, do you not do that when you're angry? Venom takes Spider-Man for a ride where the meteorite is, the foundation Peter and Harry created. Funny how things turn out. In here, as Peter is knocked out, we need to fight Venom as Miles, and whilst Venom wants to turn Peter into a symbiote so they can rule together, he doesn't really care much about Miles, so he goes all out. However, same goes both ways I guess, as Miles doesn't feel as close to Harry as Peter does. So after we defeat him in that stage, Peter wakes up and he has some epic combos together with Miles. Harry regains control for a few seconds, in which he tells Peter he has to kill him in order to get rid of Venom. Reluctantly, Peter uses the anti-Venom powers and gets rid of the Venom symbiote, and the day is saved. Not completely though, as it looks like Harry's not breathing. This is where Miles shocked me with. Wait no, shocked Harry with his power and revived him. That's great, but he's still unconscious. So what does that mean? Well, as Peter said earlier, Norman was working on an alternative cure, and I guess I don't need to tell anyone what that cure will be, right? Harry's gonna be Goblin. These. No, okay, so it's quite clear that this is a setup for the Goblin Serum, which will turn either just Harry or Norman and Harry into the Green Goblins in the next game. So this ending is an ending I personally love, but I imagine a few people will absolutely not like it. Why? Well, it is revealed that Peter wants to step away from being Spider-Man and focus more on being Peter. Here's my take on it. I believe that after all he has been through, he deserves to put his life together. Especially as he is continuing his and Harry's dream of healing the world, so he will not stop trying to save lives. As I said earlier, he will continue doing so, just in a different way. Now, as far as I'm aware, there should be another game in the series. So to the people who are concerned about this ending as they cannot see the next game without Peter Parker, here's my take on it. You don't have to worry, as I imagine the way things will go is like this. The game will start by showing how Peter has been doing without Spider-Man, and we'll see how he has a nice and quiet life, but something will happen that will make him needed again. Seeing how he's actually needed, MJ might even go something like, "Go get him, Tiger, and Peter shall be Spider-Man again." Spider-Man never actually retires, even when he's retired. Cue the credits roll. Not for us though, as there is one last part we can discuss. The side missions. Do we have any important things happening? Well, there are two more bosses, one for Miles and one for Peter. For Miles, you go through Mysteriums and uncover why people are being trapped in them. This one is self-contained, as you find out Quentin Beck's managers are basically forcing him to use the Mysterio persona for profits, to the point of kidnapping him when he refuses. So you as Miles have a boss fight with Mysterio only to find out you are fighting a hologram created by those managers while keeping Quentin Beck trapped. Now, the arena for this is quite creative. It really reminds me of Spider-Man 2 the movie, the game, for PC at least. So we save Quentin Beck and have a nice chat with him afterwards while Miles asks him if Mysterio is a good guy now. But Quentin Beck says that Mysterio, the persona, can never be good, but it's the people behind the masks that count. That is a nice interaction moment. Now for the Spider-Man side, I was caught by surprise yet again. So you have these side missions that mainly have to do with Raid, who is a superhero, I guess. So Yuri Watanabe from the first game went through a traumatic experience with the Flame Cult and decided to take on this persona to track down their leader. Who is their leader? This random guy. Or so I thought, but silly me was ignoring the signs because I knew nothing of this Flame Cult. I'm not even sure if they appeared in any Marvel comics, I think they might be original to this game. So what were those signs? Well, you have a ginger with curly hair that seems to be a mass murderer in the Spider-Man universe. It's Harry Osborn as the Goblin, isn't it? Okay, no, so the moment I saw the reason behind them doing all of this is because they tried to take another symbiote specimen, I realized who the leader is. Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. And he escapes with the symbiote. So are we getting a Carnage storyline in the next game maybe? Or is this a setup for a possible Venom game? Right, so with that, we reach the end of the story. I honestly love the game. I think it improved on the first game in every aspect. Sure, there are some parts that were either a bit weird or that did not land as intended, but I think it would be a bit unfair to criticize this by focusing on these aspects rather than the overall feel. Why? Well, I may be looking at all the previous games I've played with rose-tinted glasses, but if I actually analyze them, I'm sure I could find aspects that were not perfect just like this one. Let me know in the comments if you want me to play other Spider-Man games, and if so, which. And heck, I started quite early with playing Spider-Man games. My first one was this one. So believe me, even though I loved it as a kid, I would have a lot of things to complain about right now. With that being said, I think this would be a good place to end this video. If you watched this all the way until the end, I want to thank you. I know I've been rambling a lot. So if you like this, how about you pretend that you are Kravin and throw that subscribe spear button to hit that notification bell. That's all for now. Bye!